Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Well, look at everybody here already. Bill Allen's in the house. How you doing? Dell's here. Erica, how you doing? Kevin Lowen's with us. Douglas, are you still fishing through the hard water? Tony's here. Sarah, how you doing? Sarah, Trisha's with us. Oh, it's fantastic. 34 of you. Fantastic. On Monday, beautiful day out. Absolutely gorgeous weather. It's supposed to rain all week. They were saying it was supposed to rain today too, but guess what? Didn't hear. I don't know about where you guys are, but didn't hear. And it looks like the rest of the week might be a little bit soggy, but you know what? If you like the fish like it soggy. Last time I heard. Jim's probably going to tell us a little bit about that, but thanks so much for joining us. It is CFN Live. Not many announcements today. We had a lot of conversation going on behind the scenes, which, as I said, one of these days we're going to record it because, well, maybe we're not. I don't know. But some good conversation always goes on behind the scenes, and I've been privy to that for the last, some years anyway. I can't believe how many years we've actually been doing it. To all you CFN Fish Offers that are joining us, Mike's going to be joining us in place of our good friend Jason Barnucz. And let me just do this right here because I know Jason probably I know how he is, so he'll appreciate it, but it doesn't necessarily want it. But unfortunately, Jay can't make it tonight. They've had a close family member pass on Friday, their grandpa. So I believe it's his wife's father. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the Barnucz family as well as Jay personally, because he did lose a good friend of his over the weekend as well. So he got a double whammy. So understandably, Jay's not going to be with us today, but Mike Consul is going to step in, and we will have a discussion about the Fish Off and a whole bunch of things going forward. One of which I want to remind you is Yvonne is going to be joining us next week for Ladies' Night, and it's actually a really interesting subject that we're going to be talking about, kind of important based on what I'm hearing and even what I'm seeing myself. Ticks. Can't talk enough about ticks. This thing is becoming a real issue. Now, I know folks in southwestern Ontario have been dealing with it for a number of years, but up here in the sort of central part of Ontario, and I'm sure other provinces, I'm not really sure how you guys have been coping with it, but it is becoming a real issue. And unfortunately, there is a gentleman from Shimano that has been hit hard with this disease for the better part of 2 years. And I know Lawrence is going to bring up the name, and we're going to talk about it a little bit in his segment. But it's a real thing, and something that we need to, take an interest in real quick, because Lyme disease is not something to fool around with, and it is a debilitating disease if you get it. And the best way to combat it is not to allow ticks to enter your skin and get you sick. So we're going to be dealing with that next week. I want to thank everyone who has purchased a Signature Series jersey hoodie, I should say, not jersey, from One Last Cast. They've been doing very, very well, and the folks who own the company have reached out and thanked CFN for the purchases. So I really appreciate that. We're going to be sending out kind of a toll to see where a poll, not a toll. We're going to send out a poll to find out what species of fish we're going to do next. I have a feeling I don't know which one's going to win, but we are going to send out a poll nonetheless to our CFN community, because each year we want to unveil a new Signature Series species-specific hoodie, courtesy of One Last Cast. So we will reach out to you and see where you guys are at, which one sort of wins, and we will start putting it together and designing it, much like we did the walleye, which, as I said, is a real winner, and I absolutely love it. Steve Shaw, yes, absolutely, share away. Ed McKenzie, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you tonight. Ed's another one. I know he's with me and are with us right now. Ed really will hate me for doing this, but you know what? Our thoughts and prayers are with Ed. He has been dealing with a sickness for some time, and as I said, our community reaches out and does what it can when it can for our community. And with Ed, it's been going on, I think, for a number of years now. I think at least 2 that I'm aware of, Ed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to do something because our good old captain, Ed McKenzie, he has taken a lot of us out fishing and has allowed us to build a repertoire, if not a library of memories, through his Chasing Eyes charters. And as I said, there's a lot of you in our community that we hopefully can get to all of you and show our due respects. But as I said, Ed McKenzie is a true gem, just a great guy, and has done some wondrous things for not only the CFN community, but a number of communities. So one of these days, we're going to dedicate either a raffle draw or something to raise a little bit of money, because I know Ed won't want it, but he will appreciate it nonetheless, because at the end of the day, everybody needs to pay bills. So Ed, stay tuned. We will be getting to that. Also, in the meantime, I wanted to say to everyone who signed up for the CFN Meet and Greet that's going to be happening, courtesy Lord of the Fins and Fanatics, Fishing Fanatics Charters, Michelle has really put a lot of effort and time into this. Our captains are rare. They can't wait for this to go on, but Michelle especially, she has done a lot of work behind the scenes. And so right here, right now, I just want to thank Michelle for all of her hard work putting this meet and greet together on the 30th. We are now officially booked. So 16 spots are filled. And, as I said, the fee is $65. There's still things that we have to discuss where we're going to be doing it. It's definitely going to be either Port Colborne or Dunnville, one of the two. Looks more like Sugarloaf and Port Colborne is going to be the destination, but don't hold me to it. Our captains want to find fish. And with 16 of you that are going to be getting a 4 to 6 hour charter for your $65, not to mention, there's a special little loot bag that you're going to be able to take home with you, which is going up in value as we speak. And of course, we're never going to let you leave a CFN meet and greet without getting fed. So we are going to make sure we have a good fish fry for all of you 16 folks that are coming out to either Sugarloaf, Dunnville, Port Maitland. I'm not 100% sure, but I think we're leaning towards Sugarloaf. So it should be a really, really good time. Yes, Daniel, absolutely. Ed is a legend, and probably so mad right now he's no longer with us because I did what I did. But as I said, I love the man. I love what he's done for our community and for all of the other communities in the fishing industry. He's got a big heart, and we gotta pay it back, as they say. But anyway, meet and greet is on the 30th. The blow day is on the Monday, which I believe is the 2nd. So as I said, knock on wood, Mother Nature, if you're listening, please, baby Jesus, as they say in the movie, dear baby Jesus, please give us a great day of weather on July 30th, the Friday, for myself, our captains, and our 16 participants. I think it's going to be an awesome time. I can't wait to do this because this is what CFN's all about, getting the community together. So getting back to building community, that's what the 30th is all about. And then, of course, I'm going to be reaching out to those who have said that they're coming to our CFN retreat in August. I will be, in the meantime, this week, reaching out to each and every one of you because I want you to do something special. It won't take much work. Will only take about 5 seconds of your time. But for those who have already done it for me, you know what I'm talking about. So, I appreciate you guys getting it done. Talladega Nights, absolutely. Dear baby Jesus, please give us some good weather on the 30th of July. It's a Friday. Absolutely, it's a Friday. And it's going to be a fish fry Friday. We are going to be cooking up a lot of fish for our guests. So it's going to be good times. Anyway, I'm not sure if I have anything else that I have to remember. But Mike is probably going to be here later on to do exactly that. So without further ado, hello to everyone who's, hey, MJ, how you doing? I'll bring keto breadcrumbs. You absolutely, MJ, you can bring that. Mad Cam Plastics, good to see you with us. Christina's in the house. Beautiful. Was that a muskie or a pike that you caught? The Monster Monday. Beautiful fish. I think it was a muskie. Gorgeous, gorgeous fish. Well done, Christina. I'm sure that's a personal best. So good on you for that. Kevin, how you doing, my friend? He is our winner of our June photo contest. That is, if you haven't noticed, is our profile pic, and we'll be starting the July next week. So stay tuned to that. Probably on Friday. We'll do it as a feature Friday. But if you want to see your picture as the July page in next year's calendar, make sure you post when you see the CFN photo contest. But congratulations to our good buddy, Big Kev, who won a unanimous decision with our judges. Just a beautiful pick. Absolutely fantastic. But we are definitely going to be looking out of province. So I want to encourage all of you out of Ontario anglers, CFNers, followers. We are going to be looking outside of Ontario next month. So stay tuned to that. And yes, absolutely. Fish, yeah, pan fry Friday. I love it, buddy. That's beautiful, Sean. All right. Well, before we bring in our beloved guest, the legend, our honorary CFN captain, mascot, mentor, you name it. This guy's it. He wears many hats when it comes to CFN. Here is a word from our sponsors. There he is, the one and only SLX himself, the big sexy.
What's going on?
Jim McLaughlin, how you doing, my friend? Always a pleasure to see
buddy.
you. That's good, man. How was your weekend this weekend?
It's pretty quiet, actually.
Yeah?
What I'm old. I don't remember.
That's awesome.
I know I didn't catch enough fish, so I've been complaining about the fishing, and we're eating dinner here. There was grandkids here all day. It was like a snake show, and I'm looking at my phone, and a memory pops up, and it says And I said, I was all excited because the largemouths had somehow showed up in the bay again, and I caught 7. Like I hadn't caught one for like a week, and then I caught 7 one night. And stupid was because they ate a frog, you know. I mean, it was just like boom, boom, boom. I had 40 minutes to kill, and I caught them one after the other, and it was, and they were some nice fish too. But I've been complaining about how bad the fishing's been out here, so it's probably going to happen in the next day or two.
There you go. Right on. Good for you, buddy. The reason I thought of talking about this because I couldn't really think of anybody better to talk about. But we get questions from time to time, Jim, about folks who, as much as they love angling, they kind of want to test themselves. They want to kind of enter into things to sort of gauge their abilities against some of their peers. And based on what happened this past weekend, and I'll tell you, it was a proud weekend for some of us CFNers to see some folks who follow us, that we follow them, do very well in, whether it be, as I said, something like the CFN Fish Off, a club tournament like our buddy Cooper Gallant that did up in the Canadian Open, and then folks over in Lake Champlain. But we'll start with the entry level. And obviously, the CFN Fish Off, as if Mike were here, would definitely tell everyone it's an easy tournament to enter. You don't need a big boat. You don't need a big investment. It's free, and you can do and challenge yourself to whatever extent you want. So the CFN the Fish Off offers you that entry level tournament. So it speaks to a larger number of anglers. Now, you get up into the club tournament, which I think is really the step that a lot of anglers make first, Jim, and you would suggest
that's where it starts to happen, Scottie, is when and it's the best thing for you to do is to join up with a club. It can be a Bassmaster club, so local, every little area, there's all kinds of little clubs. They're not all Bassmasters. Some of them, the guys fish for a bunch of different things, so it's really cool, But definitely once you step up and you're actually going out in a boat, and there's other boats there, and you're competing against them. And, if you're going to get into this, too, the number one thing you got to do is about the concern of the fish. It really has. I had someone question me the other day about our departed friend there, Mr. Wu. And Ben made some mistakes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But there was a bunch of fish got killed. It's one of those things. It was an isolated incident. There's always a few fish die here and there. It happens. But I try to explain to people, how sacred these fish are to people. They ran this guy out of Ontario right through Quebec to New Brunswick after the MNR got through with him, for the sake of one event where it went south. And I just think that that's really, really impressive, because it just shows how much the anglers care about the fish. It's monstrous, and that has to be the number one thing. You can't be having tournaments with fish on stringers. And one of the organizations in the States here has taken a huge hit right now. It's a newer organization, and they actually allowed you to use culling tags that pierce the mouth.
Okay.
And that just drew furor.
Really?
From the fishing guys. I mean, if you're going to use something, it's got a clamp on, so it's not puncturing a hole, because there was a lot of fish out there, and they had a puncture in their mouth, and then it gets bigger. Other guys do it. It's just absolutely wild. But that taking care of the fish, it's got to be the number one thing. And that in your mind when you get into this, how you're going to take care of them. But starting on a low level like that in a club, in that, it's monstrous. In fact, just now that we're getting some freedom here, the Bassmaster Championship for Canada is up in Petawawa, and this year, and a couple of weeks from now, a couple of weekends, and I'm going to be the MC for it. And it's I've done that before. It's a really, really cool event. But they've asked me to come up on Friday night, help out with the meeting, and then do the weigh-ins both days. And it just goes to show how well organized these things are now. And these guys are vying to get to go to the States. They're looking for a chance to get to go to the Bassmaster Classic, like from the grassroots level, work your way right up. I mean, they still got, once they get out of Canada, I think they'd have 4 more steps to jump. But when you get south of the border, that's when you really run into the good fishermen. They fish all year. They fish different lakes. There's so many different things. There's tidal waters that they fish. There's reservoirs, and these are things that people and guys in Canada. That's why you see guys from Canada take it. Well, look, it took until the Johnsons and Gussie, and smallmouth have helped them a long way because of the smallmouth fishery. It took that much time. I mean, I could have done this years ago, and I used to look at it and say to myself, I can't go down there for beat. I don't know how to catch fish in a reservoir. Like, it's not what people think. It's not just going out and throwing your line out and catching fish. It's so much harder to catch fish down there. That's why they follow around the spawn season a lot too with the tournaments.
Right.
Some organizations are trying to, avoid the spawn season to give the fish more of a break, while others just go full steam ahead. It's what it is. But like tournaments can be a great thing, especially if you're competitive. But boy, you can get your breakfast handed to you pretty quick.
Absolutely, and that's why we encourage, and I know it's something that you say on a regular basis. Obviously, club tournaments wasn't necessarily a thing back when you first started. You kind of
just started.
It just started. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I did it 1 year, and I qualified first out of Canada, and then they sort of were disappointed because I didn't go to the U.S. I went to Aurelia instead to fish the GM Classic.
Yeah.
And that's the story with the Visa card in the mailbox. And I had no money to go to the States. And I went at the last minute. I won $85,000, and the rest is history. All of a sudden, you're back in the fishing business, eh?
Yeah. So, there you go.
So
that's all I'm missing is a credit card in the mailbox. That's all I'm missing.
You can't bank on that happening too often. Let me tell you.
But it was kind of cool, as you said. There was a lot of sort of entry-level tournaments, club tournaments. Yeah. One individual that I have here that I wanted to share. This is the Peterborough Bassmasters, and our good buddy Mike, who placed first with him and his partner Tyler David, I believe was his name. I think they caught 15 pounds worth of bass. Which is not a huge amount by any means, but a decent amount for that body of water and for a club tournament. Like that's quite something. But this is
he's a really good guy, eh?
Mike is he's top shelf, absolutely top shelf. But first you have the CFN Fish Off, then you have these club tournaments, and then of course you get to this level, which I want to congratulate our good friend and CFNer, OFC Nation supporter, Cooper Gallant, and that's a $10,000 check, Jim.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
Well, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, because another thing, I saw Sparkus come on here, and I believe he placed fourth with his wife Linda in Mitchell's Bay tournament. So there's a lot of tournaments going on. But Cooper, how old is Cooper, Jim?
I don't know. He'd be in his early 20s.
Again, make me understand this, because I look at you and you're a seasoned vet. I look at Cooper and there was quite a field in the CSFL. That was quite.
Well, you got to remember too. For the last 5 or 6 years, Cooper and Danny have been tooth and nail.
Okay.
I mean, they've gone south of the border. They've got to experience the other waters. They haven't been weekend fishermen. They've been trying to do it for a living. And that's the whole thing. You need that type of experience. You can't just fish on the weekend and think you're going to go to a tournament and win big money. You know what I mean? Like $10,000 is he probably spent $2,000 practicing and going for hotels and the entry fee and everything else. And this is where people don't realize it. They always joke that if you want to be a millionaire tournament fishing, you better start with 2 or 3. Because you'll be left with one. It's a standing joke amongst tournament guys. You look in the States, I mean, the number of guys that have won several $1 million is monstrous, but that can't happen up here. There isn't enough tournaments. There isn't enough big money. You have to be a long-term, seasoned, very, very successful person at this to win. Like you look at Kevin Van Dam. He's over $7 million now, I think. And second place is David Dudley, who is not really a household name unless you're a tournament fisherman, and he's a little over 4. So and he's second. Like, I mean, like, wow, like that just shows you the difference of how dominant Van Damme was. You know, it's
and I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, I look at Cooper, and this is, you know, by far not the first tournament that he's won, but you know, he's up there. You know, if he's fishing it, there's a good chance at his young age, ripe young age, that he's going to be in the top 10 and do very well. And as I said, Gem, like, those are two fantastic individuals, Mike and Cooper, and of course yourself. But it's just
your buddy Moose in the background there.
Well, I picked that picture for exactly that reason, buddy. Got to give a shout out to our buddy Moose, no doubt about it.
Photobomb Moose. He's looking pretty smug there in the background there. I thought he had like 30 pounds or something coming in late.
You know what he looks like to me? Like a proud papa. You know, I know him and Cooper are really good friends. He looks like a proud papa. Like you. So
I got to tell you a really good story about Cooper and Danny. The first year we moved here, they were over fishing the FLW thing that they used to have on. They had the championship on the Big Rito here, and they're over there fishing. And he had dropped by on the way down, and we chatted and whatever, and they came through and whatever. And I had all the guys here. It was when the Renegade Classic was here the first year that I moved. It was on the lake right behind my house. In fact, back here again this year, and they fished all day practicing, and everybody was here. I had like 10 people staying at the house. We had mattresses, blow up things all over the floor. Had half the staff here for Renegade, and Chong was here with Brown Ridge and a whole bunch of other guys, and every spot's full. And Cooper phones me, and there was a monster thunderstorm. Like we were all sitting in here in the living room with the windows at the end, so you could see it plain as day. It was just wild, eh? And so we're sitting there, and the phone rings, and it's Cooper, and he, hey, how are you? I said, not bad. He says, oh yeah, we just got off the lake. It's pouring rain. We got to get dry. We got to sleep in the truck tonight, and all this stuff and everything. And it's just pounding down, eh? And I says, what do you have to sleep in the truck for? Don't you have a hotel? Well, no, we don't have the money. You know, they're trying. Eh? They're trying really hard. And you hear Ricky Clun talk about that. I slept in the truck a lot of nights, and it was really, really funny. So I says to him, I says, where are you? He says, we're in Portland at the boat launch. We just got the boat on the trailer. So I put it on speakerphone, and Brown Ridge is bugging them. Chong, you're supposed to get off before it's dark, not get caught in a storm, you know, and all this. Eh? So I said to him, well, look, I said, I'm sure we can find something for you here. You can come and you can get dry. Bring all your wet clothes. Tammy or I'll get them in the dryer here for you. We'll send you out, you know, crisp and clean in the morning and ready to go. So he's in Portland. That's like 25 minutes from here. So like 6 minutes later, I think they were sitting at the restaurant at the corner and didn't know what to do. But that's it, you know. It's you got to help them. It's young, and so many people helped me, and it's the same thing. You got to pay it all back, you know. Like, it has to go back around. There has to be goodness in this whole thing. I mean, some of these guys are pretty. They're pretty serious about it, eh? Like, I mean, it's their living. It's their living. It's a whole different deal, eh?
Well, that was going to bring me to my next thing, Jim, and you just sort of touched on it. But you know, young Cooper is he's an up and comer. You know, as I said, I don't necessarily know enough about where he is at right now as the Johnsons were, or even Gussie for that matter. But I would say, you know, the passion is certainly there, and his abilities are certainly there, his talents are there. But you know, in terms of getting that push, that next, you know, slingshot, if you will. You obviously need a lot of help from folks like yourself that will point them in the right direction, give them the kind of guidance that they need. But how does a young lad like Cooper take it to the next level?
You just have to keep your nose to the grindstone.
Okay.
I mean, you got to remember, before the Johnson brothers and Gussie went to the States, they were absolutely crushing it here. Every year they won I don't know how many years in a row the Johnsons won the tournament that Cooper won, or they would come first and second, you know, and it would be a distant third sometimes. The Canadian Open, it was a Johnson every year, one or the other, in Kingston here, and that's where, you know, Chris eventually won the elite one. out here across from Kingston on the American side. And it's just when you can dominate like that in your backyard, that's when you're going to get looked at and you're going to be able to get a sponsor, because you have to have a major sponsor to fish a lot of these things in the States. You have to have somebody's name written on your boat and this, the other raft, and all that stuff. You have to be promoted by somebody, and that's you better really be at it to do that. You better really be at it. Yeah.
Now, it was on full display on Lake Champlain this past weekend, but that next level, you paid a little bit of attention watching. Unfortunately, I didn't get the privilege of seeing it, but tell us what happened on Lake Champlain this past week.
Well, it was like an absolute slugfest. The only thing that was missing was a real giant fish, because a lot of them were post-spawn. And the biggest fish, I don't think they had a fish over 6. And when you turn these guys loose on a place like Lake Champlain, they demo it. And some guys did. And then our buddy that's in the commercial at the beginning there, the Shimano guy, Keith Combs, he missed winning by like 7 ounces. Just, he had a bad first day. He stumbled the first day. And what he was doing, then he developed, his weight went up almost every day. He was catching them on top water. You hear me talk about fishing with the big walk the dog, like the Zara spook type things. So he did that 8 hours a day. He wasn't catching 30 fish, but the ones that he caught were like 3 to 4.5 pounds. They were bigger fish, and all but 7 ounces. All but 7 ounces. He still got $36,000. Yeah. So
as a runner-up,
you win, you get 100 though.
So there you go. So as I said, you've seen all different gamuts. $100,000 for a winner out on Lake Champlain. Our CFN Fish Off, you get a gift bag and some pretty cool Shimano stuff. But if you get up into where Mike won this past weekend, that might be what, Jim? $400 or $500 maybe.
Maybe a little more, depending on how many guys there was. Maybe a little more, but not. No, it's not a ton of money. Like you'd be lucky, to get your entry fees for the year back if you win one of the tournaments.
And then of course Cooper, who took home a $10,000 check. Courtesy.
What a great kid! I was so happy when I saw that. I was
Absolutely.
so happy for him. I really like him and Danny they're really good little fishermen. No doubt about it. The potential's there.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, the potential's there.
Oh, there, and that's that's what I think too, based on what little I know, and I don't know Cooper as well as you and Moose do, but from what I see, I think he's at that stage where the next level is the next thing for him.
Yeah, the other thing to be really successful at tournaments is you have to be a really good decision maker, and that's the thing I think that comes along last. You need to get a lot of experience. You got to have some raw ability. Like I said, the first year I fished and in tournaments and that, I won the Canadian Championship. I had decent finishes all the way through. I didn't win one of the regular season tournaments, but when it came down for the boat and all the money, I won. And that's when you fished alone too. And it was the same with Rocky and I that way. We were very strong fishing alone. Like we were good together. We won a lot of stuff together, but we had no problem alone. And I think that's, it's an important thing.
Sparkus, I didn't know what your payout was at Mitchell's Bay, but you say ours was pretty substantial. I'd be interested to see what the tiers and what those folks took home, because I think it's awesome that you get club tournaments that are able to raise that kind of money for their participants. Well,
Dave Chong fished with a guy we know. He always wanted to fish the tournament with Bill Jones, and he fished the tournament with him in the Tri Lakes on the weekend. And they caught, I think in the day they caught 13 fish. Bill caught 1, Dave caught the rest.
Wow.
Bill isn't really a tournament fisherman. He just enjoys fishing like second to none. He loves it. And he was the guy that invented the Black Mambo lures years ago, all those plastic baits. That was him, right? So him and Dave were out first cast of the day. Bill gets a smallmouth at 6 pounds, 10 ounces in the Kawartha Lakes.
Whoa.
And they won $1,000 for that. And then they were 6th or 7th or something. And they got their 8th or whatever it was. I don't know. They got $300 or $400 for that. So it's not a bad day. It's a few bucks. You covered the expenses, but and that was for charity. But the other you know, there was, I don't know, 30, 40 teams, whatever. I'm not sure. But the rest of those guys paid their money, took their chances, and went home licking their wounds. You know, it's always seems to be it's the first couple of spots that get the money. That's one of the things that Renegade Bass over here has tried to do, is to run the money down through it. I'm not sure the exact payouts now. It's amazing how far apart you get from all this stuff because of COVID. But
I was just going to say that, Jim. Like, you know, with everything that's gone on with COVID and these clubs having a very difficult time raising money, the fact that I'm seeing here, Sparkers is saying that first place took home $9,600 in the Mitchell Bay Open, and they were fourth, so he took home $2,880.
Yeah, shootout fishing here on the Big Rito on Sunday. Kerry Cloutier and Ken Dagenet got $13,000. Now, 7 of that was the bonus from the boat company if you're the winning team, and that's established by the tournament organization. They get a deal that if you're in one of the boats from this company that sponsors you, how they sponsor you is they have a contingency award. And if you finish the highest, or no, I believe in Canada it's if you win, you got a bonus, and the bonus was $7,000.
Wow!
So, but you had to be in their boat, in that company's boat. So if somebody else would have won, I believe it was Ranger at this one, which is, you know, one of the real top of the line top companies, and absolutely monster company for money. And this has become a big thing in tournaments now as a contingency. In fact, Keith Combs on the weekend, he got a part of his winning was contingency money for being the top finishing guy. I forget what it was for, but you know, it's like that. They didn't have that when I fished. That had not come into play yet. That was not in play anywhere. That's like in probably the last 15, 20 years, I think.
Wow. Good deal. Fantastic deal. But I got to ask you, with all these tournaments going on, and I know it's already showing up in the comments, I myself, I do love the approach of the MLF where it is, they weigh the fish right there on the spot, categorized and then listed and released immediately. I know it takes away from the excitement of what we are traditionally used to when it comes to the Bassmasters, and you see these boats going around in parade like we do at the Classic, and they pull the fish out and the crowd goes crazy, and there's a certain element that I like about that as well. But when it comes to the ultimate health and focus on the fish, I do like the MLF. If you had a choice, Jim, would you pick one or the other?
I would come from the old school, but I would have no problem doing the MLF style where you weigh your fish. And, you know, for the suspense, if I'm not mistaken, the last hour they're not there. The broadcast stopped. There's no updates, and you see a lot of shit happen in the last hour.
Yeah. I bet.
Because fish bite later in the afternoon, you know, 2, 3, 3:30. That's when you get a lot. You know, there's a lot of sun gets going. Fish get into what they're doing for the day. If the weather stays stable, it just gets better as the day progresses. And it's one of those things. But yeah, it's definitely better for the fish. But a lot of these guys, on the other hand, too, they take much better care of the fish now. Like the guys who still cart them in.
Well, it's mandatory, is it not, Jim? Like even if it's a club tournament, you got to have a working live well, and not just one.
Oh yeah, that's been like that even when forever, Scott.
You can't go out and not have a working live well. And I know at the Canada-US Walleye tournament, that was mandatory for them to check, and I'm sure it's mandatory at all tournaments that they have to check to make sure that the live well.
Kill switch and a live well, boy.
Yeah.
So 2 things. Now there may be other things now. I haven't fished a tournament in half a lifetime, but it's kill switch and the live well, boy. You had to have the water spraying, and you had to have your kill switch and demonstrate that it worked.
Any because there was some I just heard some scuttlebutt in behind the scenes from some of the anglers that were participating in some of these tournaments, and they were amazed at how deep they were catching the fish. Any concerns about catching bass, you know, in 20, 30 feet of water?
Well, you know, it's all got to do with atmospheres, and that effect on the fish starts actually in the high teens. And I spent a lot of time with Dr. Bruce Tufts, who did all the catch and release research for Shimano with Queen's University. Like, I mean, Shimano has spent, I'm sure Shimano has over $1 million involved in catch and release over the years, because it has been all my life. And I've been with Shimano for 38 years, and catch and release was that because I did a lot of the research in the beginning with them. I caught a lot of the fish that they used, and we would catch fish. We would have a day where we'd go out and we'd catch the fish. I would only catch them flipping. That would stay in water less than, say, 5 feet deep. So you catch them on a flipping rod. They're in the boat in a couple of seconds, and then they would take some blood out of the fish and we put them back in. Some of the fish they kept, but a lot of them they took the blood out and they put stuff in it to keep it from metabolizing, so they can tell what state the fish's blood was in. And then they would have me catch fish, say, on crankbaits in 12, 15 feet of water. And you would literally keep the fish going for, say, like 20 seconds. Even if you could have got them in faster, you'd let them fight. And I would try to keep in my mind about 20 seconds, swing the fish in the boat, put it in the net, whatever, that type of thing. How many fish can you have in the live well? Because one of the things that the antis came on about was that they couldn't find something legit, so they tried to say that the live wells were part of the reason why the fish died. So there was one day in particular where I absolutely loaded the fish up doing this with Dr. Tuff's team, and I had close to 50 pounds of largemouths. Probably over 50 pounds in the live well. And I mean, we had permits for all this. So you could do whatever you want, except sushi. No,
I was just saying 50 pounds of largemouth, that's my yearly take for
MLFs Great. I'd be in that day there. Let me tell you, especially the lake it was on.
Yeah.
I'd have probably lost by 2 ounces. No, but it's, we had all these fish and they were checking the oxygen every like five minutes. Then we went into really shallow, warmer water, let the warmer water circulate through. And as long as the water was really blowing through. Now, this wouldn't apply to bringing smallmouths from the middle of the St. Lawrence River into a backwater. That's a complete different game. That's what happened with the dead fish a couple of years ago. That's why they died. They just couldn't withstand the temperature change. It was just too far. But, we did all this research and, it's out there. It's legit. And these fish. Bruce described it to me once as the fish after a day in a tournament. As long as they're treated with some respect along the way, the water is run. That type of thing. They're in no different shape than a football player that goes out and plays 60 minutes of football. At the end of the day, he's tired. That's it. The next day, he's fine. And that was what it's fine.
Well, it's a great point you bring up, and Sparkus, I think that's awesome that the folks at Mitchell's Bay provided free ice, because the reason I'm getting at this, as great as the approach is to the MLF, there is some of us that I would be in favor of incubating them to a certain degree in a live well. You catch these fish, 14 feet, as Alicia said, they had to fizz one of their fish. Putting them in the live well with a little bit of ice, a little bit of colder water allows them to regenerate a little bit quicker. So as great as the MLF is, I almost would like to see some of these fish retained so that, they could be, hospitalized, if you will, to ensure.
Well, there's another thing I've talked to Bruce Tuffs a lot about, and he sort of agrees with me whenever we talk about it. I noticed that when you have a fish and you take a few seconds, like he said to me, when you take a fish out of the water, it's like me holding you by the neck and putting you under the water. And it starts as soon as you go in the water, just like it starts for the fish as soon as he comes out. That's why, like, if I catch a nice fish and I want to take some pictures, he goes right in the live well.
Yeah.
Right in the live well. Boom, the hook's out of his mouth. He's in the live well, pow. Or I leave him in the water. If it's like, I don't want to get him exhausted for nothing. I leave him in the water and I get the pictures. But I see a lot of times people with a fish, and this applies to pretty well everything except for a muskie. It's because muskies truly get exhausted. You have to spend time with them sometimes. But I put so many bass back in the water where I put them back nice and gentle, and they still sort of flip around on the top. They're not quite sure what's going on. 99.9% of the time, they eventually do take off. But if you just take them and just sort of put them, face first, boom, into the water, I think it just puts a force of water over their gills, the oxygen things, and it sort of wakes them up a little bit. I'm positive, and Bruce Tuffs, he didn't disagree with me. He did, we're not talking about catching the fish and throwing it back in the lake like you see some idiots do. Stuff like that. But no, definitely if you just take those fish and just fire them back in the water, like you talk to the guys on Lake St. Clair, the muskie guy, a lot of them take the fish and they torpedo them back in because the boats are so high that they can't work with them. And, very seldom do they have them come back up. There's something about that torpedo, putting them back in. And once again, we're not talking about trying to throw a speedball with them, they just go back. Yeah, they just go back in the water. I think it just shocks them and they wake up. And I've had fish that were on the top that weren't happy, and I picked them up and do that, and they're gone. And it's just another aspect of it from experience watching that.
Wow. Great depiction there of the fish, and just like that, our time is up as well, Jim. As you said,
Just Fishing, the new summer issue's up.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that, and there are some great articles in this magazine. I had a chance to go over it on the weekend. Blown away at some of the content that you're able to draw in, and this is.
I had a guy that's a big outdoor writer in the States send me a message on Facebook, and he said to me, "How did you ever amass these people?"
It's true.
I said, "It's my good looks. That's all there is to it." He came back. I don't even know the guy. He came back. He said, "Now that's fake news." And I say it was funny, eh? But it's just relationships,
Right
it's relationships, and it's what it is. So,
well, you've done a fantastic job and continue to do so, Jim. As I said, the who's who and the what's of the industry is in the magazine for this summer issue. Please go to justfishing.ca and look over your copy. It's a must-have. There's incredible.
Did you hear that?
No, what was that?
A bird just flew into the window in the office. Kurt Funk.
You sure it's not Cooper?
No. Too funny.
Right on, buddy. You take care. Have yourself a great week.
I'll be safe out there, Ed. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself, and take a kid fishing.
Amen, brother. Amen. Thanks for this,
Jim.
It, buddy. Always, buddy. Always a pleasure. I tell you, we get so lucky to have a guy of his stature. As I said, I can't say enough about Big Jim. He is he's a legend and will be around and will be a legend for many, many years to come. Before we bring on our next guest, Lawrence, here is yet another word from our sponsor.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
There he is, Lawrence Gunther from Bluefish Canada, who is here. And this is kind of cool. I'm going to like this subject tonight. But it is, if you don't know, Shark Week on Discovery Channel. And it used to come once a year, Lawrence. Is it twice a year now with the repeats, sometimes like 8 or 9 times? Like, how many weeks are there?
I don't know. And then there's other TV networks, and that are doing their own shark sort of specials here and there. So that gets a little confusing. So when I hear it coming up, I think, oh, there it is. Discovery Channel, Shark Week. And I don't care. I'll watch it all year. My wife wouldn't watch it last night. It was with Jackass, right? She said, I won't watch Jackass. No way. I said, I'm thinking that's the funniest one.
Well, it is. It is and it isn't. It's one of those things where there has to be a big caption at the bottom that says, please don't try this at home.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't one of his cameramen, or he was going over the ramp, and as soon as he hit the water, the sharks came at him?
Yeah. I didn't get to watch it.
Well,
but they've been doing it for 20 years, right?
They have. And, I've seen Steve-O do everything, stick a hook through his lip. Like, I mean, stuff is just off the charts.
Oh, yeah. It's silly.
It is. And as I said, I hope I hope his buddy's okay, because he did get rammed pretty good by a shark.
Well, yeah, they're feeding sharks, with big fish just by hand, just holding the fish in the water, and the sharks just come over and take the fish. But there after all the introduction to the jackass segment, and they showed all that, the fish, the hook through the cheek and all that. And then they gave a nice little presentation about, we're here to teach you about the importance of shark, the important role they play in the ecosystem, why we need to take care of them, why we need to be understand them, why we need to not be afraid of them. And, they really centered this in a message of conservation. When 90% of the sharks around the world have been taken out, right, by us in the last 10, 20 years, that's a huge loss to the ocean. And there is just one big ocean with many names, but it's just one big ocean.
Yeah, you're right. And it concerns me to no end when I see the amount of sharks that are being targeted. And I do know that there is a natural selection that goes on, in our grandest of all waters, which is, of course, our oceans. But when you see humans targeting these fish in great numbers. There was one in Texas that just recently weighed in 1,000-pound tiger shark, I believe it was. Very, very rare for those waters to see a fish of that size. And yeah. I know it's a tournament, but again, here we are at CFN stressing the need to throw all the big ones back. But I don't know, is it a double-edged sword keeping a fish that size and perhaps maybe getting scrutinized by your peers? Why would you throw a man-eating fish like that back in the water?
Yeah, I watch these Billfish tournaments, where people pay $100,000 to compete, and they're pretty connected through social media. So when they keep a fish, when they decide to bring a fish in for the weigh-in, they know it's going to be a winning fish, pretty much, right? So they're not gonna bring in fish that are going to weigh less than what's already on the leaderboard. So there's something to be said for that. But then, that fish on the leaderboard paid for that spot on the leaderboard with its life. And then the next one that's going to beat that one is going to pay for it with its life. So you are taking, increasingly larger fish and killing them as the competition unfolds. Marine recreational fishing has nothing to do with freshwater recreational fishing. It's two totally different worlds. It's absolutely, they are very much, look at the International Game Fish Association. You want to get a record, you've got to kill that fish and bring it in and have it officially weighed and measured. And, you got to have the line, the hook still in its mouth. You got to cut the line off, and they've got to check out the line strength, the leader strength, the hook size. It's all got to be there, and it's all got to be witnessed. So they have recently made some exceptions for some freshwater fish to be able to break the record without keeping the fish. But as far as sharks go, though, shark fishing, right? Like, that's something people don't talk about so much, because you go shark fishing. Why do you shark fish? Is it something that you should be doing? Is it, you hear about these people who fish for sharks, and they know there's white sharks around, but they say well, no, we're fishing for other species, but then they catch white, sharks that they shouldn't be catching by accident. And they know that where they're fishing, it's mostly those sharks that are not offside, but they do it anyways, and they take pictures, and sometimes they get charged because they, if they're posing with the fish, they'll get charged. You got to let them go right away. But I think, sharks are fish, and if you want to catch a shark, and if you want to participate in that and hire a guide and take you out and have that experience, there's no different than any other fish. You're putting them back, right? And if you go out with someone like Art Geaton out of Halifax, and he's tagging these fish, he's measuring them, he's recording them, he's taking all the hooks out of their mouth that they've collected from the long line swordfish fishery, because those swordfish fisheries put out 40 miles of fishing line on floats, and then every 10 meters there's a leader hanging down with a hook, a circle hook, and a chunk of meat. So when they reel this line back in, when they have a shark, they just cut the line. They waste the hook, and because they don't want to bring that shark on board and unhook it and release it again, they just cut the line. So you can catch these blue blue sharks off the east coast of Canada, and Art's record is 9 hooks in one shark jaw, you know, and it was still swimming around eating, but you know,
9 hooks.
9 hooks. Yeah. Yeah, and they don't rust. These are hooks not meant to rust, right? Stainless steel, galvanized, you know, nickel coated, whatever. They don't rust.
Wow. Well, you know what? I've often wondered this, and I know I said to you that I've got a few shark stories. I wanted to mention just here because it was going to be a Monster Monday feature, but unfortunately I didn't get to it because of work. But I wanted to share it with you folks because I've always thought about this, and I'm going to read what a captain down in Naples wrote in regards to this fish. Now, we've all seen pictures like this. This is a big grouper, massive grouper. And part of it is missing. And I'm going to just read real quickly what was said by this captain. This post was shared by Bill Shebeck down in the States. I'm not sure what his affiliation is with the captain, but the captain says this, and I quote, "Seconds after a client got back in the boat after swimming next to this 120 to 140 pound Goliath grouper for a picture, a big bull shark showed up and bit him in half. I never hesitate when someone wants to swim with one for a picture, but after today, what I saw, I think I'll be keeping my clients in the boat from now on. That was just way too close for comfort."
I've fished for bull sharks down in off the coast of Miami, and you know, you start with using some feathered hooks to catch some needlefish, you know, some 8 to 10 inch needlefish. Then you put those on circle hooks, and you catch some bonita, you know, 15 to 20 pound bonita. And then when you got yourself a nice bonita, no, what happens then is, you know, and I didn't realize this, but I'm playing the bonita, and all of a sudden, boing, and I go, oh, my line broke, and they rig me up again, and I catch another one, and I'm reeling it in, and boing, my line breaks. And I said, wow, something's wrong with the line. He goes, no, Lawrence, the sharks are here. Catch one more. So I caught one more, got it into the boat, you know, didn't waste any time. And we rigged it up. And I think it was a size 11-aught hook with 500 pound stainless steel leader wire, 200 pound braid main line, and then the whole, you know, chest harness and harness on the thighs. And I'm tied to this fish. Literally, you know, really tied to this fish. It's a stand-up harness. You don't hold the fishing rod at all, just to control the angle of it. But the fishing rod is connected to your thighs. It's connected to your chest. You can get easily pulled out of the boat with this thing. And we put this 20-pound bonita on the line, dropped it down below the boat. An 800-pound bull shark came over, grabbed it. I thought, oh boy, my friend's just watching this. He's telling me as this is all happening 20 feet below the boat. And he goes, oh, it's got it. Oh, he left with just half of it. He goes, oh, hang on. His buddy's coming. Boom. Okay, you're hooked on. You're hooked up. And it was a 350-pound bull shark, right? Just like that. And but we didn't let that fish run. We didn't pretend it was like a sailfish where it just takes off. I overpowered that fish in 10 minutes, had it beside the boat. We used a special hook extractor that just twists the circle hook out of its jaws, and it was gone. It never had a chance to aerate its muscles, to oxygenate its muscles. It never had a chance to get the lactate out of its muscles. So it was we just overwhelmed it. We just thoroughly overwhelmed that fish just by putting so much pressure on it. It just felt it was outgunned, and it gave up. It literally gave up. I had it beside the boat in 10 minutes. We got some pictures of it in the water, unhooking it, and it swam away. And why we do that is because if you let these fish get a full oxygenation, and then you have to fight them for 2 or 3 hours, then they're fully exhausted. When you let them go, then they drift back down. The other sharks look at it and go, hey, there's an injured shark. Let's go eat it. And they will. They'll just go and eat it because it looks vulnerable, right?
Well, you know, and it to me, I think these fish are getting like our killer whale pods out in BC. They're getting smart when they see boats. Mm-hmm. They think those are anglers, and those anglers are going to be pulling up salmon. So they're easy targets, and these shark are I would like to think no different. And it freaks me out because the number of videos that you see on YouTube where, you know, someone's reeling in anything like a grouper or a snapper, you see hammerheads chasing after it. You see bullheads and any kind of shark for that matter.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered these Goliath groupers that lay at the side of a boat, and it's like a fad. They got to jump in and take a picture with it. And I'm thinking that is literally the last thing I could possibly think or want to do is to climb in the water after I've seen tarpon after tarpon swim for its life, being chased by every known shark and within a 100-kilometer radius. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty cool to see. It was a really, really cool picture. And to Bill Shabak down in the States for posting this, I thought it was a cool reminder that as neat as it is to catch a Goliath grouper, the last thing you want to do is climb in the water to take its picture. Hey, that's our public service announcement for today.
You wouldn't do that in Canada either, right? Like if you're out fishing out of Halifax or on the east coast of Canada, that's 55 degrees water. That's not warm. It's cold water. Plus, when they're fishing, they're using a lot of chum, like a 5-gallon bucket poked full of holes, and they just hang that out the back of the boat. So there's this huge oil slick surrounding the boat, and just a stinky slick. The birds will come and land, and then you see the dorsal fin of the blue shark coming over, and he's just circling around looking for the food. He could smell it everywhere. He's looking for it. He'll swim up to the bird just floating on the water, and he'll sniff the bird. Are you it? Are you? And I go, he's not going to eat the bird. And he goes, oh no, they never eat the bird. So I nudge them to see if they're food, and then they swim away. The blue sharks are pretty gentle critters. I mean, they can be ferocious in terms of their the way they breed. It's not very pleasant when a female gets pinned by 4 male sharks holding it by its fins, and then another male will literally rape it. And that's how they do it, right? I mean, there's nothing pleasant about the way sharks spawn. It's pretty brutal. So
it doesn't sound like it, and that's a terrible depiction of it.
Oh yeah,
but it's true. Like, I mean, a lot of the scars that people see on shark, a lot of folks may not know, is from the breeding process. They have a shark well known off the west coast and it migrates everywhere called the Joker. And it's a big female, huge shark, but it literally has a laceration from its eye all the way back to its gills, and it's a very deep gash. And they figure it was from mating. So yeah, as I said, I love them. I'm fascinated by them, but I do have a phobia about them. I'm not going to lie.
They have a bad temper. You think you're the apex predator out there, right? There's nothing you're afraid of. There's nothing that can kill you. So it's like pissing off a grizzly bear. You poke at it, it's going to lash out at you. They're not, like a muskie incidentally slashing you with its teeth when it's flailing around. Muskies don't intentionally bite you. But if you grab a shark by its tail, it can spin right around. There's no skeleton in its body. It's cartilage and muscle. And it can turn right around and grab it. When they're really mad, they grab their own tail and they spiral down, right? They're so angry. They'll bite anything. You go out with, like I said, Art Geaton and his mate, and they've got scars all over their legs and hands and arms from getting bit by blue sharks, and just because they get mad. So you're dealing with animals. You got to respect these fish. These are not fish that will take any sort of intervention lightly. They get angry.
Well, and even their skin will draw blood. If they run up against you, you'll feel how rough that skin is real quick, and it will literally draw blood. But it reminds me of a comedian that had a good little skit in regards to sharks, and he said, they've always told me that if I ever come face to face with a shark, that I punch it. And he said, what I've never thought of it from the shark's perspective. That, the shark comes up, he's curious, right?
Yeah.
What is this thing out in the middle of the ocean? How stupid of a person this is to be swimming in the middle of the ocean. Let me go up and take a sniff. And then all of a sudden, buddy hauls off and hits me in the nose. Well, if I'm that shark, this is what I'm thinking. You know what, dude? I was literally going to take a sniff and I was going to swim away. But now that you have punched me in the nose in front of all my buddies, I'm gonna have to chew your leg off. So yeah, I'm not so sure that punching a shark is the best thing to do or the worst thing to do. Who knows?
Yeah, Yeah. And then you see these videos of people riding these sharks, right? And those are Greenland sharks. They're pretty docile sharks for the most part. The basking sharks, and they can live 200-300 years old, these fish, because they're cold water sharks. They're deep. They live deep, 1,000 feet down, except when they come up the St. Lawrence. And then in the St. Lawrence River, you can see them cruising along the shoreline, 10, 15 feet off the shoreline, and 5-10 feet of water, just cruising. No one knows why they come up the St. Lawrence River, just to poke around, have a look around. I'm not talking to Montreal, but Tadoussac and out that way, right? And that's pretty salty water, even though it's only halfway down the St. Lawrence River technically. You're another 800 miles before you're into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, but it's salt water. That's all the whales are there. 17 species of whales, basking shark, and these are no one knows about basking sharks. They're just so misunderstood and poorly known. It's absolutely amazing. But we should talk about Rob Stewart too. We should give a nod to Rob Stewart, and the guy that made that film, Shark. What the hell was the film called? It was he got everyone talking about finning sharks. And not Seaspiracy, but they did touch on that. I forget what it was, but you're 100% right. Huge. He went undercover and exposed the dark side of what goes on with sharks. And to be honest with you, when you see that documentary, and it's on the tip of my tongue, I can't think of it. Yeah. But you wonder how there are any sharks left. Oh yeah, I know. Well, 90% are gone. 90%. And Rob Stewart gave his life. He's a guy from Toronto, right? Yeah. Swam with the sharks, loved sharks. Just understood them as you don't piss them off, and they won't bother you. Just stay calm and make yourself small, and they just leave you alone. And he made that movie, and this is a movie that played in mainstream theaters. Yes. Mainstream theaters. People across Canada love this man. And he made another.
That's Kenneth just mentioned. Sorry, Lawrence. Sharkwater was the name of the documentary.
Sharkwater. Yeah. Then he made another one. He got criticized for it because he was being more of an environmentalist, where he flew all over the world to talk about environmental issues, and people say, "Well, here you are flying all over the world in jets, producing all this pollution." And then he started making his third documentary, and he was diving off the coast of Florida. I think this was 2017, diving off the coast of Florida with a rebreather, looking for sawfish sharks, and he died. He died, in his early 30s. So this guy,
it was all over the news.
Oh yeah, gave his life for sharks. But you know what? I still think you can have connections with sharks in sustainable ways to support local tourism, that support shark awareness, that give you an angling experience that you'll never have any other way. And probably in North America, we're the only people in the world that don't eat sharks, but we don't eat them for whatever reason. And maybe it's a good thing we put them back, because there are not a lot of them, but there's lots of blue sharks off the east coast of Canada, that's for sure. And now increasingly more, great whites.
Yes. And a lot of suggestions would theorize that they're there because their food is moving, and there's an abundance of food. And I hate to think that it's the bluefin tuna. I would like to think that they'd be able to get away from these creatures, but because that fishery is as fragile as all get out, and I would hate the fact that they're targeting those fish. But there is that suggestion too that they're coming up because of the seals. But another Scottie shark story or a little tidbit of information. Talk about your connection with sharks. David just mentioned one here. He remembers snapper fishing in Australia, anchored 160 feet down, 8-foot rollers, beautiful day. Well, that's debatable. 8-foot rollers, I'm not so sure. I was told to bring in my feet as 14-foot hammerheads circled the boat. Well, I had a similar story.
Wow.
I'm down in Florida on my honeymoon. Long story short, my wife is up in the condo, and I'm down surf fishing. Just, I'm throwing a rappler or some kind of crankbait, and I'm catching ladyfish. I'm catching the odd little lemon shark. It was cool. I said that's the beautiful thing about Florida is it's not hard to catch fish. And I really enjoy Florida for that reason. Anyway, speaking of Australia, this guy comes up, and I want to say he was Australian because he had a thick accent, and he said, hey, mate, you're not from around here, eh? And I said, no, from Canada. He says, oh, yes, I can tell. And he had a beautiful redfish, beautiful redfish in tow. And he said, can I make a suggestion? And I said, yes, absolutely. Is there a certain kind of bait that I should be using to catch a fish like that? He says, no. What I want you to do is, he says, I've been watching you the last couple that you've been reeling in. You're still waist deep in the water. And I said, yes. He says, well, you have no idea how many sharks. And he didn't even get the word out. And I was flying over the water. As you said, I had a phobia, but I never thought, I just figured catching like little fish. And then, of course, young, stupid. Anyway, we learned. The last story I will tell you, and I may have already told this story, was we're deep sea fishing with my youngest and Jake, my second oldest. We decided that on our last day down in Florida, we were going to take this deep sea that said that there was a possibility that we would target shark. It was a cheap thing, and you could tell that the folks that were on the boat were not tourists. They were from town, and they were going out to catch dinner. Honestly, and no offense to those people, but you could just tell that that's what they were. They came with shopping bags instead of coolers, and as I said. So Jake and I did really well. Jake especially did really well. We were catching all kinds of fish, and we were donating them back to the folks at the back because we thought, we're not taking these home. We're leaving for Canada the next day. Yeah. Doesn't Jake hook into a lemon shark? Jake, my son Jake, God love him because he is quite the angler. He catches what probably was a 6 or 7 foot lemon shark. Wow. And I'll be honest with you, that was the expression that the captains and the first mate had, because I think they had hoped for many trips that a shark would show up on deck, not actually thinking that any of their customers would actually catch one. And here's young Jake, all of what he had been, maybe 13, 14 years old, reeling in this lemon shark, finally get into the boat. And my young son, who was all of 5, young Evan, God love him, he wanted to take it home. And the captain said, what are we doing with this fish? And I said, well, we're going to throw it back. Like, I have no interest in keeping the fish. And he says, well, would you like to, perhaps donate it to the people at the back? And I said, no, I'd rather not, because my son's going to see that. And I'm having to, somehow calm my youngest son down, because he's terrified. He's just horrified that this fish is not going to go home with him. And this captain's like, buddy, like, they're drooling back there. They want this shark so badly. You could actually see them starting to sharpen their knives. They were ready to eat it. Oh, man. Anyway, so I've got this, war going on, this battle, right? And then finally I had to make a decision that my young son, who is just like dripping in tears, because I've had to say, no, we're not taking the fish home. Doesn't the captain, right in front of this 5-year-old boy who is already broken at the thought that this fish is not going to go home with him? Yeah. He turns around, butt face, and bounces the head of this shark. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's just traumatize your children. That's ridiculous. Right. So that's my story. Honestly, it was the toughest night of my life. It went from a very high because you could tell that the staff, they had never seen anybody really catch a fish or a shark in the last month and a half. So it was cool to see one actually come to the boat. And then, of course, the townspeople, they were thrilled because they were going to carve it all up when they got back to the dock. So we were making a whole bunch of people happy, except this 5-year-old who is now hating the world. Anybody on 2 legs is his enemy. Yeah. And anyway, it was a tough night, but it was an interesting story, and a lot of people laugh when I tell it. I got a shark story for you. Go. I was in Long Beach, Los Angeles. We're at the beach. We're a bunch of people there. We just came from the aquarium of the bay, in doing a whole lot of research on leopard sharks, and it was leopard shark breeding time, right, where the mothers come right in and they give birth to these sharks, these baby sharks, these pups that are about 12, 14 inches long, and the mothers are maybe 6 to 8 feet long, and they get into 3 feet of water on the beach, but leopard sharks are totally
docile. They're not aggressive. And we're told, so I think, okay, we'll go to the beach. Why not? My kids love going to the beach. They don't understand, there's going to be sharks there. And everyone's going in the water, and I'm standing there in the water, maybe up to my knees. And I'm told, the baby sharks will go into maybe as little as 12 inches of water, right? And I just take a step and I put my foot down. What do I put it down? Right down onto a baby shark, right? And I pinned it to the bottom, and it's just squirming and squiggling back and forth, trying to get away from it. And I go, do I let it go? Well, it's not that big, so I left my foot up and it swam away.
Oh man, funny story.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, I'll have to say, buddy, I have never had shark. I don't know what it tastes like. As I said, I think I've been so traumatized. I doubt I'll ever eat it as long as my youngest son's alive. In his memory and his honor. On your Feel the Bite segment, Lawrence, what did you want? There was something you wanted to talk about.
Well, you know what? We just went through National Fishing Week, right? Family got to go fishing in Ontario all week for no license. I've been working with the Dover Court Community Center and the Ottawa River Muskie Factory. We organized a whole bunch of fish camps for youth. So we've got 3 weeks filled, and we're working on filling a 4th week. And each week has 12 young people between the ages of 12 and 15. And Shimano set them up with some great rods and reels and some great tackle packages. So these kids are well set up, right? They come on a bus in the morning from the community center with 2 lifeguards, and then a teacher here in Ottawa. He gives them the main instruction. I help out on one day, and we're really setting these kids up with, like, how we were taught to fish, right? With just regular old J hooks and lead sinkers and plastic bobbers. These kids are fishing with tin weights, circle hooks. So that was their panfish experience. Little size 10 circle hooks, tin weights, and they were catching panfish on these little circle hooks, right there in the jaw. None of them deep hooked like you do with a J hook quite often. And then for another, it was drop shotting, and they're using barbless hooks for drop shotting. So they're really learning all sorts of ways that we would have to adjust to, because we were taught a certain way, and then we have to reteach ourselves, and we have to break ourselves of these old habits and relearn these new habits, right? It's not easy. I mean, I think everyone can attest to the fact that give up barbs, go to circle hooks. What? I don't think so. But these guys are learning it at such a young age that it's going to be part of their fishing DNA moving forward. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. So I think it's so important that if you're going to teach your young kids, your grandchildren, your children to fish, take some time, see what's the current best practices are. And you can find a lot of that on the bluefishcanada.ca website under resources, under stewardship tips. We've got all sorts of downloadable tips on how to catch and release, how to harvest sustainably. And this is all the latest best practices by scientists, by top anglers. Learn it. Teach yourself something and do your kids a favor. Teach them how to do things, in 2021, not 1971 or whatever. Things have changed, things have evolved, and will continue to evolve. So take some time, learn it, and pass on that knowledge. So they're, it's amazing. To them, it's just normal. It's just, that's how you fish.
And dude, you are literally ripping the words right out of my mouth. You're 100% right. There is fishing, there is catching, and then there is keeping. And a young child does not know the difference. And as I just explained with the shark, at the end of the day, as much as it traumatized my child, I've taken him fishing many times since, and he's always had the premonition to throw it back. Thankfully enough, not to bounce, the walleye off the deck of the boat. He's wanted to throw it back. And why? Yeah. Because he hears me push it. And don't think for a second. Don't devalue yourself in any way. You folks are all mentors to children that you have of your own and those around you. And by no means give up the opportunity to pass on that kind of information that Lawrence is talking about, that, there's catching and then there's keeping. And we're trying to save this fishery. So we need to catch more and release even more and keep less, because we've been saying it with our legacy members for some time now. We need to really start hammering this point home, that there's fishing and then there's catching, and then there's keeping. And we need to catch as many as we want, but because we love catching, we got to do some releasing as well. So
yeah. And you know what Big Jim was saying about, you know, the Major League Fishing. I mean, you get a 2-minute penalty if you release a fish above gunnel height, right? Now, what a great thing to teach your kids. Torpedo the fish in, but not at gunnel height, no higher, right? Yeah. So they're only dropping a couple feet maximum, 24 inches, you know, nice little splash. I mean, we can all dive 24 inches. It's not going to shock us or anything. It's just enough to wake you up a bit. But to throw the fish out, you know, and arc it over the water, and then it does a big belly flop and big smack. You got to avoid that kind of stuff. And kids might think it's funny when they hear that big smack sound, but that's, you know, it's about teaching them respect. These are animals, and so there's a bunch
to their dog. They wouldn't do it to their cat. So
yeah. No, you catch them at it. You know, catch them young, teach them right.
Amen.
So that's my feel the bite tip is just, you know, take the time. I mean, look, kids can learn how to fish on YouTube. They can get all the information they want about how to fish and where to fish on social media, but it's up to us to teach them the right way to fish.
Amen, brother. And on that note, my friend, this has been a great trip back down memory lane, and great information shared. Anything upcoming that we need to be aware of from Bluefish Canada?
We're just doing some more work on different ways of regulations and tracking how regulations around, you know, slot limits and all sorts of things like that around catch and release and harvesting, how those rules are evolving in different parts of Canada and what we're learning from that. And by no way is this path finished. We've got more, you know, miles ahead of us, and we've come miles, but it's a work in progress. So it's kind of interesting to take a little pause and a snapshot. Okay, where are we now, and where do we need to go, and where have we come from? So that's coming up in the next Bluefish news next Monday, I guess, the 19th.
Fantastic. That's awesome, brother. Well, listen, Lawrence, as always, thanks so much for bringing what you do to our CFN community. It's always a wealth of information. We learn so much. And we look forward to this segment because there's always something on the horizon that we need to know. So for all the work that you do to gather that information, we truly appreciate it, my friend.
Well, thanks for giving me the time to share it. And thanks, everyone, for taking the time to listen to me.
Right on, dude. You have yourself a great week.
Thanks. You too, man.
All the best. Right on. 2 gems right there in Lawrence and Jim. But we're not done yet. We do have our good friend, Mike Consul, who is filling in for Jason Barnucz, who, again, I will say is not with us today because close family member passed, the grandfather of Steph and Trevor, and I'm thinking it's on Jason's wife's side. Also, a good friend of Jay's has passed as well, so he's dealing with some stuff. So we gave him the night off, to say the absolute least, but it was well deserved, and in his memory, we'll be thinking of Jay. Let's have a couple of his sponsor segments before we bring in Mike.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have. Thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Mike Consul's here.
Hey, Scottie.
How you doing, buddy? Are you finally getting some sleep?
I am kinda. Not yet.
How often have you wet a line this past weekend? How often did you wet a line?
I have not wet a line in 2021. But I am here to give to talk a little bit about fishing. Usually I'm on and I'm talking about the Fish Off. So I'll talk about the Fish Off a little bit, but then because I'm replacing Jason for tonight, I'll actually talk not just about the fish off, but about fishing, even though I haven't done any fishing in 2021.
Good times. Well, listen, Mike, at the end of the day, you know, speaking about the fish off, you are a savvy angler. Sure, you're a weekend warrior like the rest of us, but you've obviously learned a thing or two. Your partner, Kenneth, certainly would teach anybody a thing or two about targeting certain different species of fish. But, you know, one of your favorite fish to go after is, of course, bass. I know you like your pike too, but you love your bass. And what are some of the tips that you can offer, you know, anglers that may be just getting into fishing, some of the go-to setups, presentations in order to better their chance of hooking up?
Well, let me answer it this way. Some people think it's luck, but there is some luck involved. But you gotta make your luck. You gotta stack the cards so that there's a greater chance of you catching than not catching. And if you look at the Bassmasters, like, there's a reason why there are repeat winners, and it's not just about luck. It's about stacking the cards in your favor so that you get on more fish. So my dad will say it, or Merle will say it, is like, why are you so lucky all the time? And it's not about luck. It's, like I said, it's deciding and choosing what elements to focus on so that you are increasing your luck. One of the acronyms that I use in my religion class is living under cosmic knowledge. So luck, L-U-C-K, living under cosmic knowledge. And if you have this cosmic or universal knowledge that you can apply to whether it's your life or fishing or relationships or money, then it's not about luck. It's about knowledge. And if the more knowledge you have, the luckier you'll naturally be.
Well, dude, that's deep stuff, man. As I said, is this where we fill in a paid advertisement? Like, holy crap, that's deep. But you're 100% right, and it is all about stacking the cards. And some things that, you know, if you get asked, and I'm glad folks don't think I'm a professional angler, because I'm definitely not. I'm just like all of you. I'm a weekend warrior that has the ability to get lucky every once in a while, because, as Mike said, we stack the cards in our favor. But one of the easiest and most go-to setups, presentations, whether it's bass, walleye, or any kind of fish for that matter, a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce jig head with a paddle tail, 3.5 to 4.5 inch paddle tail. You cast that, that's what I call a search bait. You're guaranteed that if there's fish in that neighborhood, you're going to get one or two.
Yeah. And what I try to do is, one, time on the water is the most important thing.
Amen.
The more time you have on the water, it's not just time on the water, because you could be out there for days, or not for days, but you could be out there all day. But me and you can be out there all day, but my bait might be in the water longer than yours. And if my bait is out there, like, so we're fishing on the same boat, but if my paddle tail on that jig head is in the water longer than yours, then my ratio of getting bites will be higher than yours, because I'm presenting the bait to the fish longer than you are. So how do you achieve that? One, be organized. Like, have all your stuff ready, so you're not. I go fishing with guys, and I swear they're doing more tying or switching baits than actual casting. Or where's that bait? Where's that bait? And they're trying to search for their stuff. So I'm casting, my bait's in the water, and they're in their tackle box. So time on the water and bait in the water.
So
second thing is, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but, you know, part of that also, take it to one more step, is understanding the body of water you're fishing. I'm not sure who it was, but Facebook user said a little heavier for the Detroit River. Absolutely. If you're river fishing, then you have to up your weights. You have to up your game, and you might be carrying tackle that you don't normally use in order to target fish. But as much as I always like to say to anglers, instead of loading up with a whole whack of tackle, go with your confidence bait. Try and keep whatever it is that you bring in the boat or with you on your person in small amounts. You do not need to load up with a tackle store full of tackle. Just if you understand the body of water you're targeting, gear yourself up according to that body of water so that you're not carrying, 2 and 3 tackle boxes to the boat, because in a lot of cases you really don't need that.
Yeah, you don't. I try to limit it to 1 bag, but that means the night before I'm tying multiple rods. I'm getting my tackle boxes set up so that I'm not bringing everything, because if I brought everything, there'd be no space on the boat for anyone else. But I'm bringing what I know or what I think I know will do well that day. So now I'm not searching through 100 baits. I'm searching through maybe 10 or 15 that I think will work. And then going back to my point in terms of your bait in the water, that's why good equipment makes a difference. And your ability to cast makes a difference. Because if me and Scottie are there and he's casting twice as far as I am, I'm doing more casting and he's doing more retrieval. So he has to cast less in terms of having his bait in the water longer. So my dad all the time was like, "Yo, man, you're so lucky." And because there's so many different factors, my bait is in the water longer because I cast longer, where he's not as skilled as casting, or his equipment isn't as good in mine. And then related to baits, if I'm going bass or pike fishing or any like sort of predator fishing, I'm trying to target 3 sections of the water column. If I want some fun action, active fish, I'm targeting that first top water to like a foot down, and that's I'm fan casting with a top water or surface bait, and then I'm fan casting that whole area. If there's nothing there, I'm not moving spots yet, because I don't know what's under that. And I know I go fishing with guys and they're just spinner bait, and they're only fishing like a foot of water. But they're probably, if they don't catch anything, there might not be anything there. But there could be a ton of fish under their bait that just not active enough to come up and grab it. So I'll fan cast, I get nothing, then I'll try that middle column. And I'll get a deeper diving bait, or like a bait that you said, and I'll just twitch it within that middle column and kind of bounce it along. Or a crankbait that goes a little bit deeper, that has a longer lip. And then I'm still not catching anything, and if I trust the spot, then maybe I'll bottom bounce something. So like that same presentation that you said, Scottie, a paddle tail or a spit tail on a jig head. Now I'll let it hit bottom, and then I'll twitch and just bounce it. Or maybe I'll do a drop shot, or maybe I'll do a craw, something along the bottom, maybe slow my presentation down. So now I've eliminated the top. I'm nothing in the middle. Now I'm going slower at the bottom, and I'll see what I get. And then if I still don't have anything, I have 2 choices. I can either switch my baits and try it all over again, or I'm going to move. And depending on the situation and the weather and how I'm feeling, I'll either move or switch baits and do it again. But it's always a tricky decision.
Well, I think that's a great way of breaking it down and dissecting it, Mike. You're covering water columns, and you're definitely wanting to make sure that whatever bait it is you're throwing is within the strike zone of the area of the water you're targeting. So as I said, top, bottom, and middle, dude, that was really well explained. Now, as a successful CFN fish offer, you've now taught our anglers who are going to be fishing from shore how to target their waters and how to dissect it when it comes to how to pack their tackle box. What are some tips that you can give some of the upcoming chosen draftees when it comes to targeting shore fish?
All right. So we talked about time on the water and bait on the water. Another factor is time of year and actual time of day. So you could go to an amazing spot and do everything right, but if you're not there at that time of year when the fish are there, it's not going to matter because you're not going to be there. Or you can go in the evening and those fish don't show up. Those fish are only there in the morning. So you really got to consider, and this is where research and experience and talking to your network really, really makes a difference. You got to be there the proper time of year and the proper time of day. And you just got to make sure to do your research, because you could be, I've done it many times. I show up to a spot where I think, oh, I've caught fish here in April. They got to be here. They got to be here in July. And they're not. They're not. It's either water temperature or too much weed growth or, you know, amount of sun. And these are all factors that determine whether fish are there or not. So time of day, time on the water, and how long your bait is in the water. All factors you need to definitely consider. But maybe the number one thing to answer your question more specifically, Scottie, is do your research. You know, we all have our honey holes, but kind of take note in your head. When was I there? What time of day was I there? What month was I there? What bait was I using when I did catch the fish? Take that all into consideration when you're developing a plan in terms of this is where I'm going to go on this day. Especially for this year's draftees, there's only 2 weeks of fishing. And you're filming and you're trying to catch as many species as possible in 2 weeks. So you definitely have to develop a plan versus just going on a whim and crossing your fingers that something's there. When we have a 6-week tournament, you have a little bit more leeway. But if you have to try to catch as many species as possible in 2 weeks, you really have to develop a game plan.
Amen. Alicia, that's a great point. You know, when you're going out on somebody's boat, whether it's a tournament or, you know, a club event like this, it is kind of rude to show up with a whole whack of stuff. I totally agree. I like to downsize what I bring, but as Mike has mentioned, depending on what it is that you're looking to target, you know, you'll probably have 2 or 3 trays in your tackle box if you pack light like myself, and you'll be able to do that. Just as Mike has mentioned, you'll be able to attack different columns of the water. And then fishing from shore, as Mike said, do your research. Some fish will hit during the day. Then you're going to want to go out at dusk and target, say, walleye. When it comes to preparing yourself for everything other than the fish, Douglas has his hands full right now because up in Nunavut, in front of their town, there's a polar bear. We deal with things down here called ticks. So they're a little bit smaller and a little bit easier to deal with than a raging polar bear. But when you are going out and we are encouraging our anglers to shore fish, Mike, what are some of the things that we can prepare for, like for bugs, for sun, etc.?
Sunscreen's a must. Like you could tell I'm not fishing because usually I have like raccoon eyes because I've been wearing my Polaroids all day, every day. So yeah, sunscreen's a must. I'm lucky. I'm one of those type of guys where the mosquitoes don't bite me. Merle will be beside me and she'll be eaten alive, and I'll be like, "What are you talking about? There's no mosquitoes here." So, and you got to get sleep too, because sleep determines how well you do in terms of anything in life, including fishing, because you got to be focused. But when we're talking about bait, Scottie, and what I consider when I'm on the shore, man, the number one bait Ken and I use to win season 1, 2, and 3 gotta be a worm. Just gotta be worms. Because so many, whether, you know, last weekend I took the kids, I didn't go fishing, but I took the kids out fishing, put a worm on. They got bass, they got rock bass, they got pumpkin seed, they got bluegill, they got a catfish, and they got a pike. Summer got her very first pike, and that was on a half a piece of worm and a 24-inch pike. So almost every species that we caught in fresh water, Ken and I, was all caught on a worm. Now, when you get to the bank, it's always like, where am I going to cast? You got to read the water. And it takes a little bit of experience, and that's how fishing with other people helps gain that knowledge. Just look at it on the water. And a lot of times you'll see, well, over there has this type of ripple, but over here has this type of ripple. That means there's something in the water changing the way the water acts when it goes over whatever that thing is. It might be weeds, it might be structure, it might be a boulder. And we know fish like weeds and structure and boulders. So kind of look at the water And sometimes it looks like, where am I going to cast? One thing you could do is just fan cast. But like I said, you only have 2 weeks. So try to pick out points where there's a little bit of difference, because that little bit of difference might be where the fish is sitting versus out in the open.
Well, Kenneth is saying, yeah, worms are universal bait. And it always struck me as odd and funny, because how does a fish know in 30 feet of water, 400 feet offshore, oh man, that's a worm, oh, I gotta have that? Like, they don't have any clue what these darn things in. But now we've got companies that over the years have been mass producing them in molds, and they're all kinds of lengths, and they are definitely a go-to. Whether these fish think they're small snakes or perhaps, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But needless to say, fresh worms, fresh lively worms is definitely a go-to when it's species you're trying to target, because they are, as you said, they work and are universal for all of them. So
talking about worms, Scottie, I know I was talking to Ken, and Ken swears there is a huge difference between fresh worms and like worms that are on their way out. He was telling me stories how he had like old worms. They're like on the verge of dying, kind of getting stinky, versus the people beside him using fresh worms. Big difference in terms of how much they attract fish. So I don't know whether it's movement. I don't know whether it's scent. I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of both. But there is a difference between fresh worms and real worms. And I learned this from Ken. Like, I used to bring out my worms, and then they just wouldn't last. They just wouldn't last because the sun is beating on that styrofoam container. But Ken showed me he brings a little cooler, and he has a square cooler as well as a round cooler. Put in whether a bottle that he filled overnight, and now that bottle is full of ice, or putting some ice in there, and that just keeps your worms fresh. And even if you don't use your worms that day, they'll still be fresh for your next trip the next day, because they're in that cool container. So definitely a tip for our CFN Fish Off.
So Kenneth said, okay, you're cut off. No more tips. Kenneth that's all of my secrets. So you're cut off. No more. Mike, we are approaching, I guess we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. We have Tourney Tuesdays tomorrow, and I think for the last 15 minutes or so, let us talk about what folks can look forward to tomorrow, because there is a lot going on.
All right. So we have our week 4 draw, and that's happening tomorrow on Tourney Tuesday. So 2 Symmetry Shimano combos will be given away. And if you look at the list, and you know what? I'm happy to announce the list is actually finalized now. So if you go to the list on the scoreboard on the CFN Fish Off website, it'll show you the top team, anyone eligible for the draft in the top 25, all the way down to the bottom. So we'll be announcing the first, second, and third place winners tomorrow. We also have our provincial winners, and every single species you've caught gives you a ballot into our week 4 Shimano Symmetry draw. So we have that draw. Plus we have our bonus Shimano draw. So if you showed a Shimano product on screen, that gives you a ballot into our bonus Shimano Symmetry draw. And then, oh man, this is going to be exciting. We have Bill Landry, Jared Littlejohn, and Mark Beeler coming live tomorrow. And we'll have a list of the top 25 teams and the 50 anglers, part of those 25 teams. We are going to spin a wheel, and whoever its name is revealed on that wheel will have the first round draft pick, and then they'll have the second round draft pick, and then we will know which teams and which anglers will be representing Canada in this year's version of the CFN Fish Off, airing on the World Fishing Network and Sportsman Channel Canada.
Mike, you nailed it as always, buddy. And as Sarah said, sleep is overrated when the fish off is going on. And right now, I would wager who's had more sleep between the two of you, Sarah and Mike.
I've had more sleep. I've seen Sarah's submissions for Bouncy Bottoms, and she's definitely had less sleep than I.
There you go. Well, as I said, Bouncy Bottoms team, not to plug it too hard, but they certainly had the best year that I've seen them participate in the CFN Fish Off. They worked very, very hard. It seemed like every time I was going on Facebook, I was seeing a submission from either Trisha or Sarah. So good on them for finishing fourth. At least, as far as I know, is that official, Mike? They were fourth?
I got to look. I don't know what the order is. I know what the top 3 teams are. I don't know what the order is below the top 3. So I got to look. But I think one or two of them will get drafted because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And I'm not trying to plug them for the sake of our captains. I think it's an obvious choice for at least one of them. But yes, as Mike has mentioned, the CFN Fish Off will be airing on Sportsman Channel and WFN. Fingers crossed that our participants and our teams put together one heck of a show. And I know the networks are looking forward to seeing what we come up with this year because it is unique, it is different, but it spoke to COVID, which unfortunately is starting to show up again. So unfortunately, I think we're going to be okay for the 2 weeks that we have to shoot. There's not going to be an issue. We've managed to get through this, Mike, and I can't mention that enough, that I was very concerned that this wasn't going to happen this year.
We did it.
We did it, man. Absolutely.
And it was the best online tournament we've ever had. Those of you that finished in the top 25, there's a pinned post on the CFN Fish Off Facebook page. Make sure to fill out that survey form because that tells us that, yes, I'm in the top 25, and yes, I agree to be drafted because we want our team members, our captains, to be drafting those who have the time and availability to be drafted. There have been some people that said, unfortunately, I can't because those dates don't work. So we just need to know that. So if you're in the top 25, please fill out the form. Let us know if you wanted to be eligible to be drafted. And Ken has a tip there, Scottie.
I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I've never heard of this.
You want to read it out?
Here's a tip. When you use chunks of worms, never put the worm that has been ripped up back into the same container with all the other worms. The worm blood will spoil all the other worms and cause them to die sooner. I always keep the worm segments in a separate, once I break off the piece, so a separate container. Dude, I just learned something. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I noticed. So remember I told you Ken has that cooler with the ice pack in there. So I noticed if he cuts the worm in half, he'll leave the worm in the cooler, but not in the container, which is 2 things. 1, just like he said. And 2, I know I've done it. I'm like, where's that half of worm? Where did it go?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it just goes to show how often I use live bait. But if I was competing in the Fish Off, I can guarantee you my truck would be stocked full of worms because I have seen you and Kenneth and a lot of our participants catch a whack of fish with simply a hook and a worm. A lot could be said.
And you can get your worms for free. So anytime it rains, or, me and my dad used to do it all the time, even when it didn't rain. If we were going fishing the next day, we would water the grass in the evening. And then once the sun is down, we take our flashlights, walk around the backyard and pick our worms for free. And when you're using that many worms, that's, $3.50, $4 a dozen, it adds up. So if you can pick your worms for free, you'll save a lot of money for sure.
Well, my father would always get mad because my mother loved to compost. And of course, I was always there, the green thumb and the environmental savior of the world. And, you got to compost, you got to recycle, you got to this. And it used to drive my dad crazy because all he thought composting did was attract the mice. But little did he know, I'd go in the back 40 where the composting bin was, push it off to the side and do exactly what you said, just dig the first foot of earth. And holy smokes, the number of worms you get from just underneath a composting bin. Woohoo!
So join us tomorrow. Oh, we got a big day. We're going to give out some prizes, and we're going to show you. Some of you might have not seen it, but we'll show you what our provincial winners are going to get. And then we're going to do our draft, and there's some exciting times. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tourney Tuesdays.
Right on. Thanks for all of our guests who came on tonight. Of course, our thoughts are with the Barnucz family, who right now are mourning the loss and making arrangements for Grandpa, who has passed. as well as Jay's buddy. So as I said, Mike has stepped in, as we do here at CFN. We have each other's back, and thanks, Mike, for doing that. To Jim, to Lawrence, and the rest of you that joined us tonight, I bid you farewell only until tomorrow at 7 o'clock, where these two ugly guys meet again on the CFN Fish Off.
See you tomorrow, folks. Have a good night.
Guys. All the best.